Hi, welcome to Fringe Fridays presented by USAF. Tonight, our guest is the director of the Pittsburgh Fringe Festival, Xela Batchelder. Batchelder, I butchered your name.
You did fine.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Amanda.
Yeah. Xela, what is your quarantine vibe? How have you been in all of our various stages of shelter in place that we've had going on here?
Well, I'm also a university professor, so moved everything online. So that was interesting, and a parent, so no babysitting. That's always fun when you're both trying to work. But we're in the green phase here, so you can masks, and so there's less limitations now. So it's not exactly back to normal, but there's a lot more normalcy happening now.
Okay. Would the volume glitched for a second. What did you say? What was green phase? What was that like for you in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, so we're green phase, so you can wear masks and go places, and you have to still stay 6 feet apart. So all the places, so theaters aren't open yet, but a lot of the restaurants and such can be, and there's a few places that are doing sit down if they're outdoors or far apart. So yeah, there's a little bit of return to normalcy, but not a lot.
Not a lot. I'm in the Bronx in New York, and yeah, I think we're in a similar. We're phase 2. Playgrounds opened up, which I'm happy about, but I also have mixed feelings because so many touching of hands and faces. And I was telling you earlier, I'm a nanny during the day, or I was before the quarantine. I work for a great family. They're still fortunately paying me. And so I will see them again someday, but I know from firsthand experience, kids touch everything and touch their faces. So we've got playgrounds. We also have outdoor open seating, and it's been interesting to watch everything transition. And I hope it all goes well. Yeah. So you are the director of the Pittsburgh Fringe Festival, which is in its 7th year, correct? Did I do that math? I have a math phobia. I don't like to do math in my head. And you all had, due to the circumstances, your first ever all digital Fringe Festival lineup this past May.
Yeah.
What was that like, transitioning the content over to a digital lineup?
Yeah, so we were supposed to be the first weekend in April.
Okay.
So we were one of the first Fringes that had to, actually, I think we were the first one that had to cancel. There might have been one other Fringe in the West Coast that canceled. So yeah, that was sad and hard and difficult. And because it was so close to our actual Fringe starting, we didn't think we could do online right away. So we just kind of regrouped and decided to do it the first weekend of May.
Okay.
So that gave people some time to get ready and started, and for us to figure out what was going on. It was still pretty much a whirlwind, switching everything, and we just put everything in and gotten ready for the program, and now we're starting. A lot of the shows were different. It really wasn't a switch of just the shows we were going to do going digital. It was all new applications, all new shows. So we're almost started from scratch.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot to process in such a short time span. And I know that Pittsburgh Fringe used to be a lottery, and now it's more of an Edinburgh style application. Well, not really application. It's if you have a space, you can perform. How did that translate into digital? So how did you pick? How did artists self-select themselves for digital lineup if you had to scrap? So if I'm understanding correctly, the original 2020 lineup was kind of scrapped, and you started from fresh all over.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we told our performers they had like first dibs or whatever, and a lot of them couldn't do it, so we just opened out the call to anybody.
Okay.
But a lot of people didn't have digital stuff ready. So a lot of our normal performers couldn't do it. A lot of, even with an open call, I mean, we didn't get that many shows. That we actually got kind of similar, a little bit less than we would have in person. And even some of our shows that were going to perform switched entirely to new shows. They changed up the show because the show they were going to do digitally, so they found other shows to do and practiced and rehearsed them online within a month. Yeah. So everyone was kind of scrambling, and some people were lucky and had pre-recorded digital shows, and so it was probably easier for them. Some people, yeah, it was. We also really opened it up because we really looked at different online digital formats, and it was hard to find something that we knew would fit for everybody. So we sort of did the Edinburgh model digitally and said, just tell us what format it is, and we'll provide the link from our website to go wherever you want to do it. So it could be live, it could be pre-recorded, and whatever format you feel most comfortable with, because we don't want to kind of shoehorn everyone into one format when we didn't have time for everyone to get comfortable with new things. So if they were already familiar or working with a digital format, we wanted them to use that digital format.
And when you say digital format, you mean whether it would be streamed live or pre-recorded?
Sorry, what again?
When you say digital format, you mean whether they would choose to do streaming live or pre-recorded?
Well, but even in the streaming live, do they want to use Zoom or some other format? Which website? We would let them use whatever.
So you were not limited to one, like we're doing this via StreamYard right now. Yep. You did not limit yourself to one vehicle of digital streaming.
No, we let you use whatever you wanted. Some people were just Facebook Live. We had Instagram Live, whatever you wanted to use and you were comfortable with, because we felt it was important for you to feel comfortable.
Gotcha.
You didn't have time.
Gotcha.
Time to really learn. In fact, just picked one that they thought they would feel most comfortable with, but they still never had used it before, live or whatever. So they still had to practice and learn it. Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting and very brave and commendable too, because that kind of makes extra work and a little bit more for you to do, trying to keep it sorted, who's using what and where.
And people were still deciding up until the last minute because they were like, maybe this, and then they would change their mind. So we would have them written down as one format, and they were like, that's not working. We've just been working with it, or switching to this other one. So yeah, it was, you just had to be ready to move and go with the flow.
That's very loosey-goosey and very flexible, very commendable. I just want to take a moment. If you are watching and you have comments or questions, feel free to throw them in the comment section and we will answer them. I want to say hi to Grant Evan Knutson, our regular. Hello, Grant. And hello from Mindy from NYC. So feel free to share your comments and questions and we will get to them. I was also intrigued to learn that last year, 2019, Pittsburgh moved to all new area of the city, new venues. Mm-hmm. And so that also must have been a mad dash scramble to realize, we can't go back to these new facilities we were just getting used to last year. Do you know yet if you will be able to go back to those venues in 2021?
We hope so. Yeah.
So.
It's so hard to know. I think one of them, well, we weren't going to use it. So yeah, I mean, you just hope everybody survives this. You know, some of them are cafes or restaurants, galleries. A lot of them are really hope they all survive. Some of the ones that are less likely to have problems, we would hope that we're able to be back there. So yeah, we'll be talking with them. And we were able to try to create the venue, we wanted to kind of thank the venues for all their efforts coming up to it, even though we weren't able to perform in their festivals. So a lot of the shows, if they'd already pre-booked, we thanked that venue on the page. We also were working with a programmer and he made this wonderful virtual Fringe online. It wasn't done till about the end of May, so we didn't get to use it for the really big first weekend of May, but he's kind of coming up with this cool virtual venue Fringe thing. And we did come up with a good, it worked better for visual art. We had one of our venues was going to do our main artist. We try to pick an artist for our cover and do a show for them. And we had one of our local venues that was going to do a 3D online gallery. You can make it like walk through it. And we found one that looked a lot like their venue. So, and called it their venue. So it was like you can still go to Level Up and see the gallery with Charlie Wallace's artwork.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. And it's also another component. I love that it's, I think I read on the website, Pittsburgh is an all-out, no holds barred, multidisciplinary festival. Did I get that right? Did it was
Yeah.
it word for word?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it when you have
Great
all components of different types of art, visual and dance and theater and puppetry, and that you found a way to translate that into the digital world. That was very nice. So you had a big weekend and then you had other stuff throughout May. Was it just May? Is there anything streaming on demand currently on Pittsburgh Fringe's website?
We've left everything up. So if their links are still working, you could maybe still see it. Some links might still be working. I haven't gone through and tested it because I needed a break. I was going to give myself June as a break because we essentially planned 2 festivals since
That's right. That's right. That's
last year. So what?
I was just agreeing with you. That's right. You planned 2 basically.
Yeah, we were almost done with the one. We just needed to do the live version of it, and then we had to switch gears and so start all the work all over with all new shows. So yeah, I also think it was fun by letting them use whatever digital format that they use, that people were really creative and started to practice and use it. So we had a Shakespeare show. They had a switch because they were going to be live in a T-bar and interact around the audience like they did the year before, but the new show. And they used Zoom webinar, and they figured out how to look at the different screens. They figured out the algorithms to figure out who was in what square, even though the artists weren't seeing it on their screen. And so they figured that out and practiced that. Yeah, they had a director telling them, so he would even private message them, oh, you're looking at the wrong square, go down to your bottom left. And the actors had post-it notes all over knowing where to look. And they could even pass objects from one square to the next. So they really used the format that they were in to really make the most of it.
You know, I filmed a couple of things over Zoom, comedy sketches and the like, and I know that what I'm looking at is not always the layout that the audience will see on the other side once it's been recorded. And that is, I really love that idea that they figured out the algorithm to where the little squares are placed, so that they were like, hey you, like. That's awesome.
Well, and they had to figure out, they had to all join in the exact same order every time, so they would stay in the same squares.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Oh,
so almost like
them.
entrance and exits on a theater stage. They had to get their timing right.
Oh, and I guess Mindy saw that show, and they said that show was great. It worked really well. So there we go. That's awesome. I saw that, in years previous, you would offer workshops and the like throughout the Fringe Festival. Did you have any digital components similar to that this year?
Yeah, we try to have some happy hours at the end of the night so people could come hang out and just talk about shows, because you missed that. I think that's one of the good aspects of Fringe, is that you get to go to a coffee shop or a bar afterwards and talk about the show with other people who've seen shows, get word of mouth of what shows they should see next. So we wanted to try to recreate that. I don't know if it's the same thing, obviously, and then we also did do a workshop on how to tour to other Fringes. And some of our shows are doing other virtual Fringes this summer. So that's exciting, or festival. Yeah.
That is exciting. What is the number one thing you learned having to convert everything digitally, or if you had any advice to any other Fringe leaders who are like in the thick of that right now, what would you impart to them?
Boy, yeah, in a way, I thought I had it harder because I was the first up, but I think it's worse for the people who have shows in the festivals in the fall, because they don't even know what phase they'll be in. They don't know if they'll be out and then back in. Everyone's more tired of the digital world right now. I think,
yeah, I think
yeah,
there's some digital burnout.
Yeah, I mean, we considered like, wow, a month is a tight time. Should we push it further? And then we're like, I think once we start competing with the sun and outdoor activities, even in your backyard, for those of you people can go to a park, I think that was going to start being dangerous. So I think it was good to push and get it done early. And so I feel bad for all the people in the summer who are trying to do digital festivals and just not knowing, because you have now so much time to plan. I mean, you're almost like, we almost could be open at that time, but also then we have no time to plan because we can't book shows in venues not knowing until 2 weeks before that we're going to be open. And we don't, even if you're open, you don't know if you're closed.
You're right. It's a huge I don't know moment in history right now. And I just want to let you know that Grant said the happy hours were a lot of fun. So,
thanks, Grant.
they were a success. So Xela, I know you told me also that you are one of the co-founders of Pittsburgh Fringe Festival. What made you want to co-found Pittsburgh Fringe? What was that like?
Well, I had already been consulting with fringes and helping other fringes start out. Mm-hmm. And I knew I was going to be moving to Pittsburgh because my husband got a job there. I just didn't know when I would be moving. And I Googled Fringe for Pittsburgh and found a website. Dan had just put up the website and was just beginning. He was like a week or two and just starting to think about how this would all work. And so I met up with him and I'm like, hey, I kind of help consult people anyways, and I'm going to probably be moving here at some point. So let's do it together. So yeah, we did.
Oh, that is awesome. And Pittsburgh Fringe is entirely volunteer run. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. Oh. Yeah, we're one of the smaller US fringes. We're very small. We're just also 4 days. So it's not a lot of shows. I mean, for 4 days, it's a lot of shows. It's about it was 105 performances, 49 shows in 4 days 2 years ago. So, I mean, still pretty fringes. Really small. We still have small audiences. But yeah, it's still a nice little fringe.
Well, I didn't realize it was over a span of 4 days, because I remember reading on your website, 50 shows or over 100 performances, and it said, you consider yourself small. And I was like, that's that's a lot of shows. But I guess when you put it into perspective of it being over such a short span of days, it is. But that's very impressive. And Karen gave you a shout out. Xela is absolutely fabulous. You're Dr. Fringe. Which maybe leads us into our next topic of conversation, but you actually have wrote a PhD paper on management of Fringe festivals. Do I have that correct?
Sorry, you broke up, but yeah, on the Edinburgh Fringe and fringes around the world.
Oh, wow. And you've been to Edinburgh for the past 25 years.
Yeah.
It is, outside of Pittsburgh Fringe, one of your favorite fringes. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I got my start in the world of Fringe. I went to St. Andrews University and started going to Fringe, and I haven't stopped. This might be my first year I'm not able to physically be there since I started going in the 90s. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I was telling you earlier when we were chatting to prep for the interview, I went to Edinburgh for the very first time last year. I was so happy that I went because I almost didn't go, and it's not happening this year. So my heart goes out to all the performers who were planning, and maybe even their first times going. I had last year I went and I just instantly fell in love, drank the Kool-Aid. and told myself, if I don't bring this show back or I don't have another show, I'm at least going to go for a week and see shows. And it's a sad time. It's a sad time for live theater. So you said you wrote your, I'm just so tickled about the paper. I just want to know everything, like the paper was on Edinburgh and fringes around the world, and like, what was your thesis? And
so it was about the mechanics, myth, and management of the Edinburgh Fringe.
Oh,
so I had been a venue manager for 13 years in Edinburgh, so I ran kind of a mid-sized to small venue. Of course, their small is 500 performances in 1 month, right? It's because Edinburgh is just so enormous. And so I'd been doing that pretty much since I was an undergrad. I started the venue while I was in my last year of university there at St. Andrews. And so that ended up being my master's thesis, and then I turned into a PhD thesis too. So yeah.
Did you go to school specifically for fringe theater management, or just?
No, it's rare. I mean, I'm now teaching that. That's why I know that a lot more of those schools are coming out with those sorts of programs, but it was not something that happened back then. Yeah.
So it was a self-curated study of interest for you.
Yeah, I just sort of dived in as I went. Sorry, we're breaking up.
We have a couple of glitches, but I've noticed, for me anyway, it picks up where, like, if the video glitches a little bit, it picks up where I left off. I get your whole thought. It's just a little bit of a delay.
All right.
And so when you went to St. Andrews for your undergrad, that was your introduction to the world of fringing. What happened in between going to school and then running your venue? Like, what was your very first?
I went to Edinburgh the first year, the summer after my first year there, but as a playwright, so I was just observing. And actually, that was the last time I saw that many shows, because the next year I directed a show and found out that the only way I could put it on was to run my own venue, which is a little crazy now that I think about it. So I ended up running a 2-theater and cafe bar venue right out of undergrad. So I was planning it my whole senior year.
Oh, that is such an interesting origin story. Do you still write plays?
No, I end up doing so much management, I don't have time.
When you say that the only way that you were able to put the play on at Edinburgh is if you managed your own venue, why was that? Was there not another venue that wanted to bring the play on, or? Well,
this play that I chose was a little extravagant for Fringe, and it had someone coming in through the skylight at the end and 4 doors. So just technically, I couldn't find anything that would work for me. And I'm a little entrepreneurial anyway, so it worked out that I started my own venue. But it was funny because the cast members and I were running it that first year. So it was really hard during the show because we were all in the show. So we had to get some people from another show to help us run it. Well, it was our show was on that first year. It was really crazy. We had no idea what I was getting myself into, but we liked it. And so we kept doing it. And then I kept doing it for a long time.
That is amazing. That's such a jumping into the deep end of the pool story in terms of you've been to Edinburgh Fringe before, but like your first play, you're like, I'm gonna have a skylight, someone's coming through it. I can see, I'm sure you didn't, but in my head there's Mission Impossible music playing and it's just yeah, that, and that concept of really thinking about the space and what the space has to offer realistically, pragmatically, and technically. I know as an artist, I didn't really think about that when I first started touring, but it's something that people really do need to think about. And that's such a go-getter. Like, I wrote this, I'm doing it. I will just run my own venue. Because if I know for me, I'm like, well, I can just pare down the props. I don't need I don't need props. I'm of the mindset of like, well, just throw that out. You know, I don't need any visual components. Who needs lights? Lights are it's like, I know last year my solo show, I restaged it to sort of be in the round, and I got into my venue, which was a good venue for me. I was at the Suites Novotel venue, in my brain, it was larger, but logically I should have known it was the size it was going to be, and it just wasn't feasible to arrange the number of chairs we had in a round. So I had to scrap all of the old blocking. I didn't go, well, I'm just going to go get my own venue. That is amazing. I love that. I think this is a great spot for our Fringe Freaky Friday segment. So anyone who's not familiar with the movie Freaky Friday, I know they do the whole thing where they switch bodies and they have switch positions. So Xela, if you could switch positions with any other Fringe leader in the world, they don't have to necessarily be a member of USEF or World Fringe. Who would it be and why?
I picked Kevin Charles Patterson because he gets to go see so many fringes all over the world, and I'm so jealous of that because I have a full-time job. And so I don't get to travel as much as he does, but I love listening to him and hearing about all the places he's gone. So it would be great to go to that many fringes.
Do you know how many fringes Kevin goes to in a year? The
Anyone? Huh? Does Grant know?
Grant?
Anyone? Yes. I don't know.
Have you been to San Diego Fringe?
Oh yeah. I was one of I consulted with them when they were starting up too.
Oh yeah. Wow. Oh, that's fun. Can I read because we have we do a questionnaire before. Can I read your original answer?
Yeah.
And hopefully everyone can still. So I just loved this answer. It was my favorite. Who is your Fringe Freaky Friday? Edinburgh is my favorite Fringe. Running fringes are super hard work. Not sure I want to switch with anyone else. Maybe switching with someone who gets paid to do it would be nice. I love that. I love the honesty of that. But yeah, so outside of having the experience of running your own venue for so long, like what is it about Edinburgh that's so attractive to you? Is it the city, or is it just the sheer scope?
I mean, it's grown a lot since I first started going, so it's not today's scope because it was a lot smaller back in the 90s. Because it's been growing every year. So, I just love the people and the energy. There's just so much going on. Just all the art and just is. I mean, every time I leave there, I'm like, oh, there's like 50 new shows I want to do, or got these ideas that if I still had time to direct, I would want to put into a show. But yeah, I just love being able to see that many shows and so many unique shows, and just the energy and meeting people. It's just wonderful.
It's wild. Yeah, I am a frigid Fringe participant, repeat participant, and I try to see every show every year. I always fall short. Frigid Fringe has approximately 30 shows a season, and my number typically hovers anywhere between 25 to 28, and I just never quite get it. And it was very hard for me to emotionally let go of the I must see everything feeling when I was in Edinburgh, because you can't. You'll drive yourself nuts. I had to physically turn that part of my brain off. Like, it's not possible, Amanda.
Yeah, it's like running a fringe. I don't get to see hardly any of them. But that's why I like when I travel, I get to say, oh, that was at my Fringe. I didn't get to see it. So I'm going to see it at Scranton or at Rochester or in Edinburgh. I see some of them. Yeah. So the traveling is when I actually get to see the people who were in my Fringe's shows sometimes. I try to see a couple, but it's very hard.
It's such a large world, but I think one of the things that attracts me to the world of Fringe is that it is somewhat a small world where I will, like you said, know of a show at one Fringe, not be able to see it. And then I'm like, oh, they're here though, and I can see them here. Or, I mean, I have I'm very lucky living in New York. A lot of shows will just tour through New York after they do like a Fringe circuit. And so that's happened too. And it's very nice. And Grant responded. Grant does not know Kevin's total, but apparently everyone is jealous of Kevin's total. And I know Grant goes to a lot, and he only goes to 10 a year. I think that's a lot. That's
still more than me too.
That's more than me. And he did a lot last year. I'm just bouncing back a little bit.
By me going to August, 6 weeks from the list.
What did you say?
Because I'm in August. Because I'm in Edinburgh every August, that cuts out 6 weeks of the heaviest Fringe time period too.
Mm-hmm. There is some overlap.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bounce around this a little bit. I had mentioned earlier, because you told me when we chatted earlier, that Pittsburgh moved from a lottery to the Edinburgh style model. And I just want to know what your thoughts and the rest of the volunteer staff thoughts on that. Like, why was this shift? What was the impetus behind that?
Some of it was just for capacity. Having the venues help us, so we're not doing all the physical technical work, good techs and such, but also it's bringing in different stakeholders. Just being better, it forces us to be part of the community, and those people know different artists, and so our diversity has grown because of that, because the different venues know different people and that aren't normally thinking of Fringe, and so they've brought them in to perform. So a lot of great stuff has come from it. It was a little scary because I couldn't find anyone else who has gone from lottery to the Edinburgh model. They either started Edinburgh or they started lottery and stayed, but no one's made that switch that I know of. And so we were just kind of doing it on our own and trying to figure it out. So that first year, and there's still bumps because all the local performers still have to get their head around how things are different. But yeah.
Oh, gotcha. What percentage of, obviously this year was a little different being all digital, but in a typical previous year, what percentage of the artists were local and what percentage were out-of-towners? What's your rough makeup?
I think it's very close to 50-50.
Okay. What, and your digital lineup, what was the makeup this year?
I don't know if I counted.
Sorry, I didn't put you on the spot.
It was probably 50-50, maybe a little bit more out of town, just because you have the whole world all of a sudden. So you had more people around, and the chances of all the Pittsburgh people having good digital content was harder, but reaching out to the world. So I think it ended up maybe being a little bit more not Pittsburgh, but I didn't get a feeling that it was all out of towners and no locals. So yeah.
No, that's it makes sense. When we all switched over to this new digital world, it's like, oh, my audience isn't just here. It's also across the ocean and on the other side of the US. And okay. It's very new. It's new for all of us too.
Yeah. I think the artists got stressed out a little bit because now you're not just marketing to the Pittsburgh art audience. You could essentially spend infinite tons of time just marketing everywhere because your audience is everywhere. So you just kind of have to stop at some point and say, all right, that's all I can manage. I can't reach every different city with my marketing.
Yeah, I do understand how that could be overwhelming. That's kind of like, this was before the pandemic, but I flirted with the Facebook promotion stuff, and I was like, I don't even know. Like when I was touring, is like, this is just this in itself is overwhelming, and I was still limited to one physical location. So it's overwhelming for me to think about it. I also know that Pittsburgh Fringe has a program called Fringe University, where you help college-aged artists go to Edinburgh. Do I have that, understand it correctly?
Not exactly. It's not part of Pittsburgh Fringe. It's just another side project that I do.
It's a you thing. It's a Xela thing. Got it. Right.
Yeah. It came out of when my venue was closing down. My venue was always very educationally based, since I'm a professor and I love teaching. So I just kind of transferred that into Fringe University, and that kind of feeling that I already had. So, and I knew as a professor myself how hard it is and overwhelming to come to Edinburgh and bring a group when you've never been there before. And I, at that point, had a lot of resources, and I know a lot of people. So, and there's just a lot of amazing people there, but you can't really take advantage of it very easily without someone on the ground that knows how it all works. So that's part of why I started Fringe University, to just kind of help them with all the logistics. So we do everything from arranging housing, being a travel agent, to helping them schedule lectures with people, helping them plan their syllabi. And if they're doing any readings before they come to Edinburgh, sometimes and we help them arrange any sort of class. So obviously it usually ends up being theater, but we've done like arts management, and they've gone out and worked with different performing groups at the festival. We've done actors. They usually want to perform in Edinburgh. So then I end up being the producer for the show, because they just want to perform. They don't want to do the marketing and all that stuff. So I make them do a little bit to get the whole, you've got to do a little.
Make them do a little bit. Yeah. No one, when I was in college, no one ever really made me do any of that stuff or talk to me about, I mean, how many times did I take a mask and performance class or like a Shakespeare class? And it's like, I really needed a business class. Thank you very much. So yes, make them do that stuff. It's good for them. They'll thank you later. And I think I misunderstood that when you first told me about that program, I assumed it was just for all performers, but it's not. It's for students of all artistic management walks of life.
I mean, in theory, Edinburgh has so much going on. Yes. You could essentially do a history class and just go see all history plays, and then go see castles and stuff in Edinburgh, in Scotland, right? You could do a science class. There's so many shows, science there. And so, I mean, you could do an English class and see Shakespeare instead of just reading it. So, I mean, we haven't had much that wasn't arts oriented, but it has the potential. I mean, there's so many subjects covered in Edinburgh that you could do any sort of class. And people, I mean, people from all over the world comes, in 2019, I was meeting all these politicians and people working on peace initiatives. So that would have been a great political class. I mean, there's just so many people there that I could find any sort of class you want together for that. But it works great for arts.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, you're right. There is so much there. You could literally take any kind of college class and say, okay, we're going to build a syllabus around these shows because they fit with what you're studying. That's amazing. That's awesome. How do you find the groups of students for this program? Do you have is that all from the university that you teach at, or is it an application process?
Sometimes it's that. Yeah, I usually try to find whole school groups. So I usually am looking for professors who want to do that, and then they bring their whole class. And I'm not a huge, I kind of keep it at boutique level, since I have another full-time job and I'm running the Pittsburgh Fringe. So I'm usually only bringing in a couple groups. I can't really do more than a couple groups at a time. So yeah, they mostly find me or just hear about the program. So if anyone out there wants to go to Edinburgh once we're allowed to leave, just contact me and we'll see what we can do.
And how do they go about, I mean, I don't know that we have this information in the banners, but I can plug it in. How do they find you for that specifically?
Just fringeuniversity.com, or info@fringeuniversity.com.
Info. I'm trying to Fringe. This is such a cool program. I wish that I had taken advantage of it when I was a college.
Right? Don't we all?
I really do. I really do. I really want to know more. How long did you run your own venue at Edinburgh again?
13 years.
13 years. That is so long. And you said that since you are also an educator, you had an educational mindset when planning the content. What else did you look for?
Not the content, really.
When you were bringing artists in, what was on your mind for that?
We didn't really, we kind of kept an open access model for our venue. So we didn't curate heavily for that. It was mostly for time and place and just how it all fit into the schedule. We were kind of, the only thing that we didn't do much of was stand-up comedy, because the big venues like Pleasance and Assembly and such were busy doing that. Mm-hmm. So we stuck to theater mostly. We also worked with Richard DeMarco, and so we had a big international component. He's known for bringing a lot of Eastern European art in, so we had a lot of Eastern European, but he's also known throughout the world. So we were working with him and bringing in art from all over the world, which was really great. But yeah.
And why did you stop managing your own venue in Edinburgh? Why?
Good question.
It sounds so cool.
Yeah, we didn't want to stop, but the venue we were in was, in the end, we've been in lots of different venues. In the end, we kind of ended up, which Assembly owns now, so you might know that building, and it was sold, frankly, and the new owners wanted to charge us more for the month of August than our entire budget, more than 100% of our budget. And I'm like, wow, that's not physically, I mean, no, you can't do that. And I can't double or triple my prices. We're already like in line with people. So we would have nobody if we doubled our prices. So I'm like, we just have to walk away from this. Sorry.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it is. A sideline story, that guy was convicted for fraud, real estate fraud. And so Assembly bought it after that because they just sold out all the properties that he had for real cheap, but Assembly ended up with it. So Assembly at Roxy is the building that we had at the end. But we've been in a lot of different buildings throughout the time.
Okay. Oh, I'm glad that it's still a venue and that now it's being utilized. But that's a sad ending. Although that makes me think, as I know, I went last year. It was not cheap to bring a show there, and I can't imagine the cost on the other end of the operating end. The people running the venues. I wonder how taking this year off is going to affect costs and size of the festival in 2021 and beyond. Is it going to be a reboot for everybody kind of thing? Because
a lot of the venue managers are still my friends. I feel I'm worried for them. That's hard. I don't know how that's all going to go. I mean, the great thing about Fringe is people are really they just know how to make things work. So I have some confidence that they'll figure it out and somehow it'll come back, and maybe it'll be a bit lower year. But they've been growing every year since 1947, depending on how you count, except for maybe the Olympic year. They were down a little bit in attendance numbers because they were doing so well in the London Olympics and winning lots of gold medals. So so it'll be interesting to see statistically. This is the kind of stuff I like to look at and research. So how they do after something like this.
But you're right. Fringe people are very resourceful. So it'll be there. We just don't know what form it will be there on the other side. In the after times, I've taken to calling everything the before times, the during times, and the
And
after times. We don't know.
Yeah, no.
Has Pittsburgh Fringe done any brainstorming on what a socially distanced Fringe festival might look like? I know that next year is far away, but we taken in that we don't know what is happening and when it's happening. And I know like West End just canceled all shows till 2021. And I think Broadway did the same thing. Has that been something that you've been talking about? Like, what would this look like if we were allowed to do it in person? How would we do that?
I mean, we're on some of the local Pittsburgh committees for that. I think we have a meeting next week. Rochester had a big webinar this week, so I'm paying attention to it. But yeah, there's just so many unknowns at this point. I mean, is it all, do we even need to put the bandwidth to that right now? Because maybe everything's fine because they have some vaccine or something. We don't.
True.
Yeah. And it's really, I mean, we're still in break month. I said June was my break month.
Like, I don't want to think about it for another couple of days. July is right around the corner.
That's right. So, yeah, so we're just watching and waiting, I think.
I hear you. So I just want to remind anybody who's watching, if you want to help out Pittsburgh Fringe, you want to help donate some money, you can find them on Venmo at PBH Fringe and donate at pittsburghfringe.org on PayPal. And for more information, you can go to pittsburghfringe.org. We're coming towards the end of our interview hour, 45 minutes hour. Was there anything else you wanted to make sure that people knew about you, about your work, or about Pittsburgh Fringe?
I mean, we're going into huge detail and going on for hours. I think that's a good summary.
we just hit it all. Oh, I dropped my notes. We hit it all. We hit it out of the park. Well, this has been lovely talking with you, Xela. And I look forward to what Pittsburgh Fringe does in the future and how, and honestly, all the fringes and how they adapt and everything like that.
I'm watching. Yeah.
And there's still, so you said there is still content up if people wanted to watch it. Yeah,
I haven't checked all the links, but I bet some of them still work. I know our art gallery still works.
So there you go. Go to pittsburghfringe.org and visit their virtual art gallery. Thank you so much, Xela. This has been lovely.
Thank you. Thank you very much.